Evan Engram signed with the Broncos yesterday in NFL free agency, and I think this is a really good signing by Denver. But I think what Broncos country is going to love the most, it's not just the signing itself, it's some of the news that came out shortly afterwards. Because Mike Klis, in his write-up about the signing, included this one sentence that jumped out to me. As it turned out, the offers from both the Chargers and Broncos were about the same. Ingram chose the Broncos. In other words, Evan Engram picked Bo Nix over Justin Herbert. He picked Sean Payton over Jim Harbaugh. And that's pretty much everything you need to hear for today. We can actually just wrap up the video right now. Evan Engram picking second-year quarterback Nix over Herbert, picking Sean Payton over Jim Harbaugh. That is absolute goosebumps for Broncos country, because how often in the last 10 years, we'll say, right, from 2015 post-Super Bowl to now, have free agents been looking to go to Denver? Have the Broncos been winning these coin flip free agent, marquee guys like Ingram? Not a whole lot. This feels like a nice change of pace, but more importantly, beginning of the tide beginning to change. Now, on top of that, Ingram is just a good signing. I know that I have maybe not been as optimistic, and I don't want this to come across as me not liking the signing. I do like the signing. Let me make it abundantly clear right now. I like the Evan Engram signing. I don't think we should just call him the next Joker for Denver. That's where I'm like, pump the brakes a little bit on that part. But make no mistake, Evan Engram comes in, and he is 5 times better than anyone else in that Denver tight end room. Look at his numbers last year when he only played 9 games versus all of the tight ends for the Broncos combined last season. In 9 games, he had 47 grabs. They had 51 as a collective unit across the entire season. Just talk about lack of trust and just pure, step number 1 for being a receiver. Catch the football, get the football thrown to you. Forget yards, forget touchdowns for a moment. Have the ball come your direction. He did it in nearly half the amount of games that 4 tight ends did it all of last year. But let's take it one step further. How about Evan Engram over the past 2 seasons? Because he missed a lot of 2024 with an injury, so let's factor in 2023. 1,300 yards compared to 845 in fewer games. In 8 fewer games. 500 more yards in 8 fewer games single-handedly. And I'm not here to say Evan Engram is some all-pro insane tight end, but that's where the bar was. It was so low that getting a good tight end like Ingram is going to be revolutionary for Bo Nix. He hasn't had that in the NFL. And if you even go back to college a little bit, college game does not incorporate a tight end nearly as much as the NFL does. This is probably going to be the best tight end Bo Nix ever had. And I don't remember all of his Auburn tight ends or his Oregon tight ends super well off the top of my head, but I'm willing to say this is probably the most talented tight end he has ever worked with. And that's going to be one more fun, exciting weapon for Nix to incorporate. So I am excited for the Ingram signing. If I'm going to just not even be a half glass empty kind of guy, but the one, just to be a driver's ed instructor. You know how they have the brake on their side? I like Ingram driving. This is a good thing right now. But if I'm going to be in the shotgun seat with my own brake, anytime someone says Denver got their Joker, I'm going to tap the brake. That's the one thing that I'm not quite seeing eye to eye on. You know what I am seeing eye to eye on? The Broncos just improved their roster. The Broncos just went after one of their biggest needs in free agency and got a really good player. Someone who had over 100 receptions just 2 years ago, nearly 1,000 yards. And I think what this allows Denver to do now is really kind of frees them up a little bit in the draft. Maybe just go pure best player available if some of their preferred guys are taken before they're on the clock. Or maybe they get a little greedy. Maybe they go after a running back and a darn good one. Maybe they decide, you know what? Following free agency, kind of looking over our depth chart right now, there's one thing missing. It's a running back. Because they're not going to trust Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime, sorry to those guys watching, to be their 1-2 punch for 2025. What if Denver moves up a little bit and they get this offense? Bo Nix handing it off to Ashton Jeanty, who pitches it back to Nix for the flea flicker. He's got Cortland Sutton running across the field, Marvin Mims streaking down the sideline, and Evan Engram as his safety blanket. Tell me this would not be a much more fun offense to watch than anything we've seen in the last decade. That is chills right there. Moving up, getting Genty, and now you go into 2025 with the two major flaws in your roster, tight end and running back, solved. And then in round 2, by the way, or round 3, depending on what you give up maybe to move up for Genty, you go after another tight end because it's a loaded, deep tight end draft class. You can go get Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, who's an incredible receiving tight end. The guy catches the ball and just runs people over. That's a little bit more of a joker maybe to me than Evan Engram. But still, I don't want to get back to that. So, with Ingram secured, do you feel like it's maybe a good time to start talking about, yeah, screw it. Fuck it. Let's just move up and get Genty. It might cost you a future first. I'm not going to try and ignore that part of the process. If you jump from 20 to 10, that's going to cost you a good chunk of change. But if you think Genty is going to be a Pro Bowl running back as a floor, get him around 1, of course. You have 5 years, that 5th-year option. You could franchise tag him if you'd like after that. We're talking 6 years of cost control, meaning you know what it will cost for him to be on your roster. And I think Genty is going to be that special. Now, if you're like, I don't want to give up a whole bunch of draft picks, I understand that. Here are my 2 fallback options. And maybe you just take these guys at pick number 20. Some might look at it as a reach, but like the way I kind of think about it is Nick Chubb went early round 2 back in 2018. In a redraft, he goes round 1. Would anyone have been mad if a team took Nick Chubb in round 1? At the time, probably being like, no, although Mel Kiper says he's round 2. But A.J. Brown went round 2. Deebo Samuel went round 2, right? How many times we've heard Amon-Ra St. Brown say all the players that went before him in the draft? If a team just had the stones to take those guys earlier because they thought they were really good, I'm sure no one would be upset after, a year or 2. So Caleb Johnson is my preferred second choice after Ashton Genty. The guy went up against an 8-man box at Iowa and averaged about 6 yards a carry. They knew Iowa could not throw the football, and they had to run it, and Johnson still churned out 1,500 yards and 21 touchdowns on just 240 carries. The other option would be Amarian Hampton from North Carolina. These are the top 2 second choices. I prefer Caleb Johnson, but I think it might be, what's the expression? 6 one way, half dozen the other. You can make really good points and arguments for both backs here. So either one I think would be a fine selection. Slight edge for me for Johnson, but Hampton, a complete bowling ball brute. Bowling ball is probably mean. I think when I say bowling ball, you kind of picture someone who's slow, fat, but can run people over. Hampton, I like cannonball. Cannonballs move. Yeah, cannonball. So Hampton's more of a cannonball than a bowling ball. He's not just a pure goal line back for you. And after a breakout 2023 season, people thought, what about when Drake May leaves and teams know they can't throw it as well? They're going to run it. Didn't slow him down too much. Now, before we sign off, I want to go over all the moves Denver has made in free agency just to refresh your memory. But quick reminder that over at Fanatics, they've got jerseys, t-shirts, things going for 25% off at chatsports.com/fanatics. I put this link in the comments and description. So just simply scroll down, click it, see if anything tickles your fancy. If nothing does, then don't get anything. But if you like something, save money now because these sales come and go. So for anyone that's just kind of catching up on free agency, maybe you've been busy at work or with life, whatever, here's what Denver's done so far. They've re-signed, obviously, a handful of players leading into legal tampering on Monday. DJ Jones netting the biggest contract so far of the re-signings, 3-year, $39 million. And then they went out and made a few external signings, Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw. This is my favorite signing. This is my second favorite signing. This is a special team signing. This is a depth signing right here. They said he's going to compete for a starting gig. We'll see how serious they are about that. If they really don't believe in Alex Singleton, who I thought played well in 2023, but now people are just trying to push out propaganda that he actually is sucked and he washed. So I don't see eye to eye with that. And then Evan Engram towards the end of yesterday. So 3 good value signings. I mean, you didn't pay more than $40 million for any player so far. Hufanga, $45 million. But from a average annual value, meaning, take their contract, divide by the amount of years they're on the team for. $15 million for Hufanga. That's the biggest contract given out so far. It's really a $10 million contract because it's a $20 million guaranteed. So I give it 2 years, $20 million. But overall, I think George and Sean Payton have done a tremendous job so far in free agency. This has been an absolute masterclass of not having to spend as much as the Patriots, but still getting really quality players who all have one common thing: Hufanga, Greenlaw, and Ingram. Does anyone know what that common theme is? They were all injured last year. And, severe injuries. Like, one came back from an Achilles injury. One was working his way back from an ACL injury and then suffered new injuries in 2024. And Ingram dealt with, I think it was a hamstring injury for much of the year. So, these are slight gambles, don't get me wrong. But if it pays off, it's going to be highway robbery to the likes we've never seen before. That will do it for us on today's episode. We will be live again on the channel beginning at 12 p.m., 12 noon Mountain Time. So if you want to watch some of the live free agency coverage, come back and hang out with us here. Scroll on down, though, and hit that sub button if you haven't already.